It was supposed to be a normal Tuesday. I remember the exact smell of that evening. Leftover pasta reheating in the microwave, the faint trace of baby powder drifting down the stairs, the quiet hum of the television playing a game I wasn't really watching. Our daughter, Lily, had finally surrendered to sleep after 3 hours of colicky screaming that had left both me and my wife, Vanessa, wrecked and frayed at the edges. Vanessa had kissed me on the forehead, something she hadn't done in months, and told me she was going upstairs to shower. I remember thinking how beautiful she still looked in that moment, even exhausted, her dark hair piled in a loose bun, her eyes soft and tired. I thought, we're going to be okay. We just need to get through this newborn phase. I settled onto the couch with a beer I barely touched. The baby monitor sat on the coffee table, its green light blinking steadily, that quiet green eye that watched over Lily while we couldn't. Then it crackled. At first, just static. I assumed it was picking up interference from a neighbor's Wi-Fi or maybe Vanessa's phone, Bluetooth. I ignored it and stared at the TV screen without really seeing it. Then her voice came through, but not the voice I knew. This voice was soft, playful, almost girlish in a way Vanessa hadn't been with me in over a year. Low and deliberate, like every word was chosen to land softly against someone's ear. "I swear," she whispered, and I heard her laugh quietly. "My husband is completely clueless. He has absolutely no idea." My beer can stopped halfway to my mouth. A man's voice answered, distant, filtered through her phone speaker, but unmistakable, deep, comfortable, familiar with her in a way that made my stomach turn over. "You sure?" he said. "Positive," Vanessa answered. "He's downstairs right now, watching TV. He won't even notice." I sat completely still. I felt the way you feel in the instant before a car accident, time stretching out grotesquely, every detail sharpening to a horrible clarity. The flickering television, the cooling pasta, the green eye of the monitor blinking without mercy. They talked for what felt like an hour, but must have been 15 minutes. He said her name the way I used to, slowly, like it meant something. She laughed at things he said, real laughs, ones I hadn't heard directed at me since before Lily was born. At one point, she whispered, "I think about you every single day. You have no idea." I set the beer can down on the table, very carefully, like if I moved too fast, the moment would shatter and turn out to be something else, a misunderstanding, a prank, a nightmare. But it didn't shatter. She said, "I'm just waiting for the right time. I have to do this the right way." I heard water running then, the shower finally turning on, and the call ended with a softly murmured goodbye that she stretched out like a caress. I sat in the dark for a long time after that, the monitor's green light still blinking. I thought about going upstairs, throwing open the bathroom door, demanding answers while the steam still curled around her. Part of me wanted to scream, to shatter the careful quiet of our house and let the anger pour out. But something stopped me. Some cold, calculating part of my brain that I didn't know I had until that moment clicked on like a light in a dark room. "No," it said, "not yet." I picked up my phone, I opened the Notes app, and I began to write down everything I had just heard, every word, every laugh, the timestamp, the tone of her voice. I wrote it all down while it was still raw and exact. When Vanessa came downstairs 20 minutes later, her hair damp, smelling of her vanilla shampoo, she smiled at me and asked if I wanted her to make tea. "Sure," I said, and I smiled back. She had no idea that everything had just changed.
I didn't sleep that night. I lay beside Vanessa in our bed, the same bed where Lily had been conceived, where we'd whispered secrets in the dark during the early months of our marriage, where she'd cried into my chest the night her mother died. and I stared at the ceiling and listened to her breathe. She slept easily. That was what undid me the most, I think. She curled against her pillow with the same quiet contentment she always had, one hand tucked beneath her cheek, and she slept like someone with a perfectly clean conscience. In the morning, after she left for her part-time shift at the wellness clinic, where she worked as an office manager, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and a coffee gone cold, and I began the process of becoming a man I didn't recognize. His name, I found it within 20 minutes. It wasn't difficult. Vanessa had never been particularly careful with her phone around me because, I now understood, she had never needed to be. I was clueless. She'd said so herself. His name was Derek Holt, 34 years old. He was a personal trainer at the gym Vanessa had joined 8 months ago, 3 months after Lily was born, when she said she needed to get back to herself. He had a jaw that looked like it had been designed by someone with too much time on their hands, and photographs on his Instagram of himself at hiking trails and beach bars, always with that easy, sun-warmed grin. He was everything I wasn't at that particular moment in my life. I was exhausted, 10 pounds heavier than I'd been at our wedding, buried under mortgage payments and a new baby, and a job that had me staring at spreadsheets until my eyes ached. And Derek Holt was standing on a mountaintop somewhere, looking like a cologne advertisement. I hated him with a cleanliness that almost felt good. But I didn't let myself wallow in it. I had work to do. Over the next 3 days, I moved carefully and quietly, the way you move through a house in the middle of the night when you don't want to wake anyone. I checked our shared phone plan, the one Vanessa didn't know I could access because I'd set it up 2 years ago and she'd never thought to ask about the login. His number appeared 47 times in the last 30 days, sometimes in the early morning before I was awake, sometimes during her lunch breaks. Twice, and this one hit me like a physical blow, after midnight on nights when I'd been away on work trips. I found the bank transfers through her personal account, which she'd linked to our joint account for automatic bill payments years ago, back when we trusted each other with everything. Small amounts, $40, $60, once $200, sent to a payment app I recognized as the kind couples use to split restaurant bills. Dinners, while I was home with the baby. I photographed everything on my phone. I made a folder. I named it Household Documents, so it looked boring to anyone who glanced at my screen. On the 3rd day, I called a lawyer named Patricia Wren, who came recommended by a colleague whose own marriage had ended badly 3 years before. I sat in her clean, neutral office and told her everything in a flat, careful voice, and she looked at me with the particular compassion of someone who has heard this exact story many times and never quite gotten used to it. "You've been very methodical," she said, reviewing the notes I'd brought. "I'm an accountant," I said. "It's what I do." She walked me through my options: division of assets, custody arrangements for Lily, which was the part where my carefully constructed composure began to crack. I kept my voice steady, but just barely. That evening, I came home to find Vanessa in the kitchen, dancing slightly while she stirred something on the stove, Lily on her hip, and she turned when she heard me come in and gave me a smile so warm and uncomplicated that for one terrible moment I almost believed I'd imagined the whole thing. Then she said, "I was thinking we should plan a trip, just the 3 of us, maybe in the spring." "Sure, that sounds nice." I helped her set the table. We ate together. She told me about her day, an edited version I now knew, and I listened and nodded and poured her wine with a steady hand. And that night, after she fell asleep, I moved a significant portion of my personal savings into an account she didn't know existed. The preparation was almost complete. There is a particular cruelty in being intimate with someone who is betraying you. I understood that now in a way I never could have before. How a touch can mean 2 opposite things at the same time. How a kiss can be both real and hollow. How the person you share a bed with can be a stranger wearing the most familiar face you know. On the Friday of that week, Vanessa came home from work in a bright mood. She'd brought wine, a bottle of the Malbec I liked, and takeout from the Thai place on Brennan Street that we'd ordered from on our third date years ago. She'd remembered, or maybe she was remembering for reasons that had nothing to do with me. She lit candles on the dining table. She'd arranged for her mother to take Lily for the night. "I feel like we haven't had an evening to ourselves in forever," she said, filling my glass with a generous pour. Her eyes were warm and dark across the table. She was wearing the deep green dress I'd told her once made her look like a painting. I miss us. I miss us. I turned those 3 words over in my mind while I smiled at her and clinked my glass against hers. We talked the way we used to. She was charming and attentive, leaning forward on her elbows the way she did when she was genuinely engaged, laughing at things I said. She touched my hand across the table. She refilled my glass. She talked about the future, a bigger house maybe, once we'd saved a bit more. Lily starting school, a garden. She painted a beautiful picture. It was almost convincing. After dinner, she came around the table and settled onto my lap and looped her arms around my neck. And she looked at me with that gaze she had, the one I'd fallen in love with years ago. And she kissed me slowly, and I kissed her back, because I am only human, and because some part of me still loved her with a ferocity that made me angry. She led me upstairs. She was tender and deliberate and present in a way she hadn't been in months, in a way I now understood was performance. She whispered my name against my throat and told me she loved me. And in the darkness of our room, with her hair spread across the pillow, I felt the terrible weight of everything I knew, and she didn't know I knew, pressing down on my chest like a stone. Afterward, she lay with her head on my chest, tracing patterns on my skin with one finger. "I'm so glad we have each other," she murmured. "I really am, Nathan." Nathan, my name in her mouth. I stared at the ceiling and thought about Derek Holt. I thought about the 47 phone calls, about the midnight messages when I was out of town, about her whispering he has absolutely no idea through the baby monitor with a laugh in her voice, about the $200 sent to his payment app, dinner for 2 while I heated up leftovers and rocked our daughter to sleep alone. I thought about the lawyer's office, about the folder on my phone labeled household documents. I thought about Sunday dinner, 4 days away, the whole family coming, her parents, her sister, the comfortable ritual of it, her mother's roast, the good china, everyone crowded around the big table in the dining room, Lily being passed from lap to lap. I chose that evening deliberately, because Vanessa had always loved an audience. "I love you too," I said into the dark. She sighed contentedly and fell asleep against me. I did not sleep at all. I lay in the dark listening to her breathe, and I thought about all the things a person can build over 7 years: a home, a child, a life woven so tightly from shared moments and private languages and accumulated tenderness that you cannot quite see where you end and they begin. And I thought about how easily, in the end, it comes apart. Not with a fight, not with screaming, not with dishes thrown and doors slammed, with a whisper through a baby monitor, with a green light blinking in the dark.
Sunday came the way Sundays do, unhurried and domestic, full of the small sounds of a family gathering itself. Vanessa had been cooking since morning. The house smelled of roasted garlic and bread and the particular warmth of a home that knows it's being watched, knows it's performing comfort. Her sister Becca arrived first with her husband Tom, then Vanessa's parents, followed by my own mother, who came through the door with a bottle of wine and immediately found Lily and began making the sounds grandmothers make. I had spent the morning being exactly the man everyone expected me to be. I'd helped set the table, arranged the good glasses, carved the bread, poured drinks, laughed at the right moments. I complimented the roast. I bounced Lily on my knee. I was present and warm and utterly unremarkable. My phone was in my breast pocket. I could feel its weight against my chest. Vanessa moved through the gathering with the ease of a woman in her element. She was good at this. She always had been. She had a gift for making everyone feel seen, for drawing out the right stories, for holding the social temperature of a room in the palm of her hand. Her father made her laugh at something across the table, and she threw her head back, and for a moment she was just herself, beautiful, easy, laughing, and it nearly broke me. But only nearly. Dinner proceeded. Wine was poured. Becca's children chased each other through the hallway. My mother told a story about a neighbor that everyone had heard before but laughed at anyway. Tom talked about a home renovation project that had consumed 3 months of his life. Vanessa squeezed my hand under the table at one point, and I squeezed back. Dessert plates were being cleared. Her father had just made a joke about getting old. The table was loose and warm with wine and full stomachs. It was the moment. I reached into my breast pocket. I set my phone on the table in front of me, face up. I pressed play. Her voice filled the dining room like water filling a glass. Soft, playful, intimate. I swear my husband is completely clueless. He has absolutely no idea. The laughter, then the man's voice answering through the phone speaker. The table went quiet so completely that I could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. Vanessa had been reaching for her wine glass. Her hand stopped in midair. I watched her face go through several things in rapid succession: confusion, then recognition, then a particular kind of horror that is worse than the ordinary kind because it carries the full weight of knowing exactly what you've done and knowing that everyone else now knows it too. Her mother said, very quietly, "Vanessa." Her father set down his fork. Becca had gone perfectly still. I stopped the recording. I picked up my phone and placed it back in my breast pocket. I picked up my wine glass and took a slow, unhurried sip. And then I looked at my wife across the table. She looked back at me, and I watched her try to find something to say, some version of events, some rearranging of the story that might make this survivable. I watched her search for it, and I watched her not find it. Her eyes were bright with tears she wasn't yet willing to shed in front of everyone. "Nathan," she started. "It's okay," I said, and my voice was calm, not cold, not cruel, just calm, the way the surface of deep water is calm. "We don't have to do this right now." I pushed back my chair. I thanked my mother-in-law for the roast. I excused myself from the table and walked down the hall to the nursery, where Lily was sleeping in her crib, one small fist curled beside her cheek. I stood there in the dark, watching my daughter breathe. Behind me, the house was very quiet. She was the one who looked clueless now, and somehow that wasn't as satisfying as I'd imagined it would be, because Lily was still sleeping, because the house still smelled like a family, because 7 years don't just dissolve the moment the truth lands on a dinner table. They dissolve slowly, painstakingly, at the cost of everything you thought you were building. I put my hand on the edge of the crib and stood there for a long time.
The house emptied within the hour. Her parents left first, her mother crying quietly, her father with a face carved from granite and not a word to say. Becca lingered, catching my arm in the hallway with an expression of helpless apology on her face, as if she needed me to know she hadn't known. I told her it was fine. It wasn't, but it was the kind of thing you say. My mother held me for a long time at the door without speaking, which was somehow exactly right. When everyone was gone, Vanessa and I sat in the living room with Lily asleep upstairs and the remains of the dinner still on the table and the candles guttering low in their holders. She had been crying. Her mascara had tracked 2 careful lines down her cheeks, and she hadn't wiped them away, which felt important somehow, like she understood she didn't get to manage for appearance right now. She told me everything. I had expected excuses, deflections, a revised version of reality. Instead, she told me the truth, and the truth was worse and simpler than I'd imagined. It had started 9 months ago. She had been lonely. She had been drowning in early motherhood and feeling invisible,
and Derek had noticed her at a moment when I had stopped noticing, or she had felt that way. She said, "I don't expect you to forgive me." "I know," I said. She said, "Is there any part of you that wants to try?" I looked at her for a long time. I thought about the folder on my phone, about Patricia Wren's office, about the account she didn't know existed, about 7 years of a life that had felt, until a Tuesday evening 2 weeks ago, like something worth protecting. "I don't know," I said. "That's the honest answer." She nodded. She pulled her knees to her chest on the couch like she was making herself small, which was something I hadn't seen her do since we were first dating, before she became the version of herself she showed the world, capable, composed, warm Vanessa. "I ended it," she said quietly. "The day after the dinner. I called him and I ended it." "I know," I said, and I did know. I had a friend in IT who owed me a favor, and the call logs had been quiet for 4 days. She looked at me then with an expression I had no name for, something between grief and hope, which is perhaps the cruelest combination. We did not resolve anything that night. That was the thing about real life that the fantasies of revenge never accounted for. There was no clean ending, no final score, no moment where the account was settled and everything became clear. There was only the two of us in a room full of half-burned candles, and Lily upstairs, and the long wreckage of a lie that would take years to fully excavate. I moved into the guest room that night, and the night after that, and for many nights that followed. What happened next is a slower story, harder to tell. There were weeks of raw, exhausting honesty, couples therapy in a beige office on Thursday evenings while her mother watched Lily. Nights when the anger came up in me so suddenly and completely that I had to leave the house and just drive until it settled. Nights when I came back to find her still awake, waiting, because she had decided that waiting was the least she owed me. I did not make it easy for her. I don't think I was supposed to. There is a question people always want answered in these stories. Did they stay together or not? As if that's the only measure of how it ends, as if staying is success and leaving is failure, or the other way around. What I can tell you is this. The man who sat frozen on that couch with a $30 baby monitor crackling in the dark is not the man who exists today. Something changed in me that night. Some naivete, some comfortable assumption about the world, about what I deserved, about what I was owed, burned off like morning fog and didn't come back. Lily is 2 now. She has her mother's dark eyes and my particular stubbornness about food. She laughs at things that aren't funny and cries at things that aren't sad, and she is, entirely and without reservation, the best thing in my life. The green-eyed monitor still sits on the dresser in her room. Some nights, when the house is quiet and the world has gone still, I walk past her door and see it blinking steadily in the dark, that small, faithful eye, and I think about how much a person can learn when they finally stop pretending to not hear. Everything changes in a moment of stillness. Everything.